Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Perun Veles. This watch is available from Perun.watch for €1,350. Perun are a microbrand based in Croatia, and the Veles is available in two colour options, pearl white and midnight black. Of the two colour options, I think this pearl white version is the best looking. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a solid wooden watch box, which is housed inside this outer cardboard box. On the lid to the cardboard box we have Perun, and we also have Perun in glagolithic script, and above it we have the culverat. So one removes the box lid, which is a snug fit, just bear with me. You pull down the flap and inside we have this solid wooden watch box, so I'll take it out and show it to you. So nicely finished, because if you look at the background you can see we have symbols for the Slavic gods, and again on the hinge lid we have Perun in glagolithic script and the culverat. So very nicely finished with matte black paint to a good standard, stainless steel hardware throughout, and good attention to detail because the base is lined with a piece of felt, and that means it doesn't slide about on a polished desktop or tabletop, and it's not going to scuff and scratch it. So the hinge lid is locked, and in order to unlock it you press in the stainless steel button lock. So I'll do that, and that releases the lock. As you can see, stainless steel hardware throughout. The underside of the hinge lid is very well finished with a contrasting light blue velour fabric, and inside we have the silver culverat, which is also engraved into the case back of the Veles. The base is also fully upholstered with a contrasting light blue velour fabric to a good standard, and in the base we have a cutout, and the watch sits on a padded pillow cushion, which is also well upholstered with light blue velour fabric. So very good presentation. This is an example to other mid-tier micro brands at this price point of €1,350 of how to get presentation correct. It is a high quality solid wooden watch box, and it makes a refreshing change from using the default option of a plastic or cardboard watch box, which is often used by micro brands to cut production costs and maximise profit margin per piece. Good quality solid wooden watch box, and they deserve full credit for it. Now in the base of the cardboard outer box we have a cutout, and that houses the owner's instruction manual. Clear concise diagrams, the instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Selita caliber SW221-1 automatic. Now with regards to the items you get with the watch, you also get this sleeve, and inside it houses the plastic warranty card, as you can see. On the reverse it's filled in with the date of purchase and the model number, the Veles Pearl White. It also has the website for Perun, which is Perun.watch, and also the contact email for warranty claims, support@Perun.watch. Now, usually at this price point one would expect a 12-month international warranty, but I'm pleased to report that the Perun Veles is covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good, and they deserve full credit for that. And lastly, one also gets a microfiber polishing cloth, which is also in a light blue. So it's always nice to get a microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 47.5mm, a thickness of 12.5mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push clasp. The 2-button push clasp is signed to a high standard with Perun, the brand logo, and also above Perun we have Perun written in glagolithic script. Quality of the engraving of Perun and also Perun in glagolithic script is done to a very good standard. High definition engraving, nicely polished and deburred, no sharp edges to the engraving. So 2-button push clasp is also micro adjustment, which we'll test out. We have a flat sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating on the underside, and the blue tinted anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished applied indices and the silver mirror polished handset. The handset is correctly proportioned. The sword hand for the hour and minute hand are clearly legible, and they contrast very well with the matte finish to the enamel white dial. We've also got a date indicator with a red half moon, which contrasts very well, and a contrasting red second hand. So I like the use of red because it contrasts very well, and there's good continuity of design, because if you look around the circumference of the dial, on the outside of the chapter ring with minute ticks, we've also got contrasting red Arabic numerals for the days of the month. And the half moon red date indicator registers with the Arabic numerals for the days of the month. And this is a good alternative to using the default option of a date wheel and a date complication. By not having a date window at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock, the usual default positions, we can have perfect symmetry of the dial with a large 9, 6 and 3 applied Arabic numerals. So good legibility, good symmetry to the dial, and I like the dial layouts. Nice crisp high definition printing to the black paints for the chapter ring, and also the text on the dial, and including the Perun logo with Perun in glagolithic script. But also like the quality of the high definition fine fonts used for the red Arabic numerals for the days of the month. So legibility is good, and the blue tinted AR coating works well. The bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, flat profile to it. Mirror polishing is absolutely flawless, and it's nice and low profile. So the flat sapphire crystal has a slight edge or bevel which projects above the top of the stainless steel bezel, and I like the way it catches the light. Nice low profile flat sapphire crystal, and that complements the flat profile to the stainless steel bezel. The head of the piece is finished to perfection, and Perun deserve credit for this because this is very high quality brush satin finishing and mirror polishing. So the brush satin finishing to the tops of the lugs has a beautiful luster. Interesting finish to the flanks, because rather than having longitudinal brush satin finishing, the brush satin finishing is vertical, and the vertical brush satin finishing has a nice fine grain to it, but it refracts the light, beautiful luster to it, and it makes a refreshing change from using mirror polished flanks, alternatively longitudinal brush satin finishing. I like the vertical brush satin finishing. Also on the crown guard side, very well finished, because the top edge of the crown guards is mirror polished, and that flows nicely into the mirror polished bevels, which mark the transition between the top of the lugs and the flanks, and the vertical brush satin finishing to the crown guard side of the flanks is also done to a very good standard. One detail I really like is there is a large undercut machined into the flanks of the case, and they've done a very good job because they've mirror polished the undercuts into a nice bevel, as you can see, both on the left hand flank, and so there's no sharp edge, there's no burr to the undercut of the case, and that's often the case with crisp edges to a case. The flanks often have a sharp edge, but this is fully deburred and chamfered due to the large mirror polished bevel. Visually it also looks good because it makes it look nice and slender rather than having tall slab-sided flanks. It makes the case look nice and low profile when on wrist. And if you look at the crown guard side, it's got the same large mirror polished bevel machined into it, which is mirror polished. So no sharp edges, no burrs, doesn't dig into the wrist or scratch it. And it also looks nice and slender, nice curved profile to it. So the quality of the finishing is outstanding, bearing in mind this is a mid-tier piece. Now, if you look at the tips of the lugs, they've also been chamfered very well. Nice large chamfers, which have been deburred very well. So again, no sharp tips to dig into the wrist. The quality of the finishing is very good. The crown is knurled finish, solid 316L grade stainless steel. No sharp edges to the tips of the knurling, and it is engraved, which I'll detail. So, this Veles piece has several Slavic influences to the design elements, which I'll talk you through because it makes it very interesting. So firstly, the model name, Veles. Veles was the Slavic god of the underworld and the natural world, and Veles was often depicted with elk's horns on his head. Now, if you look closely at the triangle index at 12 o'clock, above it we have a silver applied pair of horns, and this is reference to Veles wearing elk horns on his head. So that's where the Veles names come from. The Veles model number comes from the Slavic god of the underworld and natural world, and also the Veles horns at 12 o'clock. Now if you look at Perun at 12 o'clock on the dial, you can see we've got Perun text, and then above it Perun is written in glagolithic script. Glagolithic script was the oldest Slavic alphabet, which was used in Croatia from the 9th to the 19th century. And there's good continuity of design because we've got Perun in glagolithic script at 12 on the dial, and that matches Perun and Perun written in Glagolithic script engraved on the clasp, as you can see. So many Slavic elements. Now, the other thing is, if you look at the signed crown, the emblem is thunder marks. Now, I'll explain what the thunder marks mean. These thunder marks in Croatian are called gromoviti znasi, and gromoviti znasi were carved into houses to offer protection from lightning. So that's the signed crown emblem, gromoviti znasi, which means thunder marks to protect from lightning. And lastly, there's another Slavic element. If you look at the case back, you can see it's engraved with the kolvarat. The kolvarat is the Slavic symbol for the Slavic sun, and this is very beautifully engraved. The kolvarat is very high definition, deep engraving. Now, they've done a very good job of this because there's no sharp edges or burrs to the engraving. It is very deep into the case back, so it does look very aesthetically pleasing. Absolutely beautiful kolvarat, but it's not sharp, so it doesn't rub against the wrist and irritate. It's not a scratchy, sharp engraving. It feels very smooth. And so it's been polished and deburred very well. So the case back is solid 316L grade stainless steel, concentric CNC lathe tool machined, and then it's engraved with deep high definition engraving of the kolvarat. The circumference of it is mirror polished to a good standard, and we have milled slots all the way around the circumference, which are very aesthetically pleasing, but also very good because they've been deburred very well. There's no sharp edges to the milled slots. The quality of the finishing to the case back is very good, and it's also very aesthetically pleasing with the kolvarat, the Slavic sun. Now, the thing I like about it is 150 meters of water resistance is strong specification, but it's low profile and flat in the center section. It's not a bubble back case back with a deep profile to it. So this means the piece is snug to the wrist. It's only 12.5 millimeters thick, and that's the benefit of using a flat case back rather than a bubble back case back, and also a flat sapphire crystal rather than a double dome sapphire crystal. 12.5 is very impressive for an automatic piece. It's the kind of thickness one would expect with a quartz powered or manual wind movement piece. With an automatic with a rotor, it does need more clearance underneath the case back. So 150 meters is strong specification. They could have made it 50 or 100 meters. 150 is good, but it's nice and flat. It's not a bubble back case back. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report there are enough links in the oyster style bracelet to fit my 8-inch wrist. It's on the maximum extension on the micro adjustment clasp, and even on the maximum extension, I can fit an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. So this will easily fit up to an 8-inch wrist. So if you have a 6-inch to an 8-inch wrist, there are enough links in the bracelet and enough micro adjustments on the ratcheting clasp mechanism. Beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing outer links, and that complements the contrast of the mirror polished center links. The taper is perfection personified. They've made the correct decision. 20 to 16 is the perfect taper for an oyster style bracelet, and it's the correct lug width, 20 millimeters on a 40 millimeter head of the piece. The lug to lug is very close to the perfect lug to lug sweet spot of 48 millimeters. We have a 47.5 lug to lug, so it's only half a millimeter below the sweet spot. I often refer to 48 as being the perfect lug to lug measurement. That is the sweet spot regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So at 47.5 it's just a fraction below the sweet spot. This will fit you regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. Good proportions. The thing I like about it is the thickness. It is only 12.5, and that's the benefit of it having a flat case back rather than a bubble back case back, because if you look at the undercuts of the flanks, there's a minimal gap beneath the tips of the lugs, so it sits very low and low profile. Now, anything below 13 millimeters is the sweet spot. It will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 12.5, it's well below the 13 millimeter height, which is optimum. Nice wrist presence, but it doesn't feel top heavy. It curves around the wrist. It wraps around it rather than sitting on top of the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. The legibility of the white enamel dial is excellent. Proportion of the indices, proportion of the 9, 6 and 3 applied Arabic numerals is good. The sword hands contrast very well with the enamel dial, and I like the use of the red Arabic numerals for the date indication. And the red contrasting second hand and also the red half moon date indicator complements the red Veles text on the dial. Blue AR coating also does a good job of reducing the glare. Mirror polish bevel is very aesthetically pleasing, complements the mirror polish centre links and the large mirror polish bevels, which are marking the transition between the tops of the lugs and the flanks. So feel good factor is good, comfort level is good, feels very well balanced, the bracelet is proportioned, the clasp is nicely proportioned because it doesn't stick too proud out of the wrist, it's not too bulky and too long, curves around the wrist well, and it's not too long, the length of it is good, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist. Now, the thing to note is this is 152 grams, but that is with all the links in the bracelet. Now, needless to say, if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or even a 7 to a 7.5 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 3 or 4 links from the oyster style bracelet. That will reduce the heft down from 152 grams. 150 grams is the sweet spot for comfort level to wear a piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. So it's 152. It doesn't feel top heavy, it feels balanced, and it does feel comfortable to wear for long periods of time because the bracelet articulates smoothly and it's got no sharp edges. It doesn't pull arm hairs and the edges to the flanks are deburred very well. So wrist presence is good, proportions are good, feel good factor is good, the comfort level is good. The case back feels very smooth and low profile. Perfect daily wear piece. Right, so let's look at the bracelet in detail. And we'll also look at the clasp in detail. So, oyster style bracelet, flawless mirror polishing to the centre links and beautiful brush satin finishing to the outer links. Nice longitudinal satin finishing, nice fine grained finish to it, so beautiful lustre. Let's look at the male end links. They articulate smoothly, don't feel stiff, they don't kink, which is good. The pin is a nice interference fit, doesn't feel sloppy. No additional longitudinal, lateral, side to side or up and down play. So quality control, builds quality are good. The interference fit is good. Articulates smoothly without being too loose. Screw pin links are good. I'm pleased to see they didn't use the cost-cutting measure of push pins in the bracelet. The bracelet links articulate smoothly without kinking. They're not too stiff, but it doesn't rattle. No sharp edges to the top edge or the underside to the flanks. They've got a nice large chamfer to the edge and they've been deburred very well, both on the top edge and the lower edge of the flanks. So the bracelet doesn't rattle, articulates smoothly, doesn't pull arm hair, no sharp edges. The flanks are brush satin finished to a flawless standard. Let's check the other side for continuity. Male end links articulate smoothly, don't feel stiff, they don't kink. No extra, additional, lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. Good interference fit of the pin going through the centre of the end link. Articulates smoothly, doesn't kink, doesn't feel stiff, doesn't rattle. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. It's been chamfered and deburred well. Doesn't pull arm hair, doesn't rattle. No sharp edges. Quality of the finishing to the oyster style bracelet is excellent. Perun deserves full credit for this. Beautiful lustre to it, beautiful mirror polishing, no sharp edges. It's a very good bracelet. Right, so let's look at the clasp. So as I've detailed, longitudinal brush satin finishing, beautiful lustre to it, to the body and also the flanks. Nice large mirror polished bevel, which marks the transition between the body and the flanks. 2 flat head screws in the flanks, which are recessed slightly, so no sharp edges to them. The 2 button push triggers are deburred very well. Nice firm resistance to the 2 spring-loaded triggers. Doesn't have sharp corners and there's no sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge, so very well deburred. The interior is solid 316L grade stainless steel. Beautiful brush satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks. Longitudinal brush satin finishing. Nice fine grain finish to it. Centre doesn't have sharp corners, so that's good. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the internals. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates smoothly, doesn't kink, nice tight tolerances, no additional longitudinal, lateral, up and down or side to side play. Let's check the centre pin, articulates smoothly, doesn't have excess play. Let's check the right hand hinge pin, nice and tight, articulates smoothly but doesn't have additional longitudinal, lateral, up and down or side to side play. All 3 hinge pins have good interference fits, good tolerances. Now the thing I like about this clasp is it's a micro adjustment clasp, as you can see. Ratcheting mechanism, heavy spring loaded trigger. So it's now fully deployed. Let's check the ratcheting mechanism. Nice, heavy, loud, audible clicks. Half a link of adjustment, which is good because in the absence of half links in the oyster style bracelet, it is sometimes difficult to get the correct fit. Adding or subtracting 1 full link from an oyster style bracelet sometimes doesn't give the correct fit because sometimes you can be in between 1 full link, adding or subtracting, you need a half link. But this micro adjustment clasp provides half a link of adjustment. So pressing the trigger firmly deploys it, and it pushes in with nice, heavy, audible clicks. Half a link of adjustment is optimum. Now, the spring-loaded trigger is very firm, so you have to press it very hard with your thumb or index finger. The benefit of that is it's not going to accidentally deploy on wrist. It's not loose, and it's not going to accidentally deploy itself. You have to really push in the trigger very hard, and that will deploy it by half a link. And also, it's not going to accidentally close up. You have to really push in the ratcheting clicks. Nice, heavy ratcheting clicks. I'll just test it again. So you've got to really push in the trigger hard with your index finger or thumb. That deploys it fully. And when you're adjusting it, it's got heavy indexing. Nice, heavy, audible clicks. Works very well. It's not sloppy either. If you look at the end links in the bracelet, they're a nice fit, and they're not going to accidentally deploy. So it doesn't rattle, the links articulate smoothly, and the trigger has a nice firm resistance to it. I like it. It feels robust, reliable, and heavy, solid. And I like the heavy clicks. It's a good micro adjustment clasp. Perun deserve credit. It's well finished, and it works well. Right, so let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, knurled finish to it. And it is engraved. It's signed as I've detailed with thunder marks. So the thunder marks are called Gromoviti Znasi, and these were carved into houses to provide protection from lightning. So it's a Slavic symbol, Gromoviti Znasi. Nice detail to the engraving. So let's unscrew the crown. It feels silky smooth. Absolutely sublime. Minimal number of turns required. Silky smooth. They could not improve upon it. The tolerances are very good. Build quality, quality control. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So this is powered by the Sellita caliber SW221-1. Feels very similar to the 200-1, which you'll all be familiar with. Nice firm resistance. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 38-hour power reserve. So I like the firm resistance to it. It feels smooth, but you can feel the tension building up gradually. Now, pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. So, with the SW200-1, which you'll all be familiar with, there is a date complication. So you can either have a date window at 3 o'clock or 6. The architecture of the SW221-1 is the same, but there is no date wheel beneath the dial. Instead of the date wheel for the date complication, they mount the date indicator hand on the cannon pinion in the centre of the dial. So at the end of the date indicator, we have this contrasting red half moon, and this registers with the Arabic numerals around the circumference of the dial. So that is your date complication. So rotating the crown clockwise in the date setting position clicks the indexing for the quick set complication. So as you can see, the half moon date indicator now clicks around the dial. And each day of the month has a nice positive click. It feels exactly the same as the quick set date complication on the SW200-1. When the date wheel clicks over inside the date window, it has a nice positive clicking feeling to it. The indexing feels solid. Each day of the month has a click. And this SW221-1, which has the same architecture, has the same feeling. So the date indicator clicking over to the next day of the month, it feels the same as a date wheel clicking over inside a date window. It's the same sensation. There's no discernible difference because the architecture of the 200-1 and the 221-1 we're looking at are the same. The only difference is there's no date wheel, they delete it, and they mount the date arm, the date's hand on the cannon pinion in the centre. So it feels very good, nice and solid. Now the only negative of it is when setting the dates you have to cycle through the 31 days of the month. For example, if you go too far accidentally, you can't rotate the crown anti-clockwise and click it back. You can only go clockwise in one direction. It's the same as a dates wheel, where if you miss the day of the month, if you go one day too far, you have to cycle it through the 31 days again to get back to the right day. You can't rotate it anti-clockwise as per a GMT hour hand. But that's the only negative. I like the positive clicks, feels very robust and reliable, and the alignment is correct. If you look at the half moon contrasting red, it cups it perfectly in the centre of each day of the month. So the alignment is correct. It clicks over to the next day of the month very well. Very good. A nice alternative to the default option of a date window at 3 or 6 o'clock, because we can now have perfect symmetry on the dial, applied 9, 6 and 3 large Arabic numerals. So Perun deserve credit for doing something different rather than having the default option of the SW200-1 with a date window at 3 or 6. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting red second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead. So it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the SW221-1. So now in the time setting position, feels nice and smooth, clockwise and anti-clockwise. Nice firm resistance to the gearing. There's no discernible difference between the 200-1 and the 221-1. They feel exactly the same. The architecture is the same and they both have 26 joules. So you get the same feeling of the gearing. Meshes very well, feels nice and robust. Minimal backplay. When you rotate the crown clockwise or anti-clockwise, there's an immediate response. The sword minute hand immediately moves. There's minimal backplay to take up the slack. So it feels good. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click and that restarts the movement. You can see the contrasting red second hand begins to sweep around the dial nice and smoothly at 4 Hz. This is something I really like. With 3 Hz movements running at 21,600 vibrations per hour, they stutter or judder around the dial. This has a nice 4 Hz sweep running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and therefore we get that nice characteristic smooth 4 Hz sweep, which is very aesthetically pleasing. Let's test screwing it back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface of the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube, so the meshing of the threads is very good. The machining, the tolerances, the quality control, the build quality are 10 out of 10. This is silky smooth. 150 meters is strong specification. They could have made it 50 or 100 meters because this is a daily wear piece, not a dive piece. 150 is strong. It has 2 rubber hermetic seals, 1 rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown and a second rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown tube. So 150 meters is good. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. So this uses BGW9 Superluminova, and we're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the applied indices, the large Arabic numerals 9, 6 and 3, and also the sword handset. So, good colour tone match in daylight. The BGW9 looks white on the indices, the Arabic numerals and also the sword hands. So the whites in daylight matches, and also in the dark, the blue matches. There's a good blue tone match between the applied indices, the sword hands and the 9, 6 and 3 large applied Arabic numerals. Clearly 5 to 6 layers on the indices, 5 to 6 on the hands, 5 to 6 on the applied indices. So you can see an even application of the BGW9. It doesn't look darker or lighter on the hands or the dial. And the exciter is glowing very brightly with a nice light white tone to the BGW9. So it's glowing incredibly brightly. Now if you look at the contrasting red second hand, you can see the lume pip. The dot of lume is sweeping around nicely, so 5 to 6 layers on the second hand. I'm pleased to see no cost-cutting measures whatsoever. Perun deserve credit here because this is a mid-tier piece. At €1,350. Often microbrands will cut production costs in order to maximise profit margin per piece by applying 3 to 4 layers of BGW9. This is clearly 5 to 6, so they haven't cut any corners. It's optimum performance. It's continuing to glow very brightly on the hands, the applied indices and the Arabic numerals, and it will continue to glow without fading. So this is very good performance. And I like the large 9, 6 and 3, the perfect symmetry of the dial. And this is the benefit of not using an SW200-1 with a date complication at 3 or 6 o'clock. This is the benefit of using the SW221-1 because we have the date indicator, and that means no date window on the dial. We can have the symmetry of 9, 6 and 3, so it adds interest to it. Legibility is good, symmetry is good, the readability of the dial in the dark is very good. I like the proportions of the applied indices, the proportions of the sword hands, and the 9, 6 and 3 are correctly proportioned. Nice blue tone to the BGW9, the exciter's performing well, 5 to 6 layers, it's excellent. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's my favourite aspect of the piece. So, as I've detailed, this uses the Sellita caliber SW221-1, which is made in Switzerland. The SW221-1 has been in use since 2013, so at this stage in 2025, it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss movement. The architecture of the 221-1 is the same as the 200-1, which you'll all be familiar with. They both have 26 joules. The only notable difference is the 200-1 has a date wheel for the date complication, but with the 221-1 they delete the date wheel and instead they mark the date indicator on the centre of the dial on the cannon pinion. So rather than having a date wheel, they simply have a date indicator, and the date indicator registers with the Arabic numerals on the dial. It has 26 joules and it runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications, and a quick set date complication, which I've detailed. The indexing is very solid. 38-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the standard grade of SW221-1 is plus or minus 12 seconds to plus or minus 30 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range, plus or minus 12 to plus or minus 30. However, I'm pleased to report that Perun are doing a very good job of regulating the 221-1s they are using in the Veles. This one is running consistently at plus 5 seconds per day. Plus 5 is actually within chronometer grade accuracy. Minus 4 to plus 6 is chronometer grade. So 5 positions of regulation means plus 5 chronometer limits, and it's certainly within the plus or minus 12 to plus or minus 30 stated accuracy of the SW221-1. So they deserve credit. Plus 5 is excellent accuracy. The reliability, build quality, quality control, materials of the SW221-1 are all excellent. It's good to hand wind. Hacking, hand winding all work well. Quick set date complication works well. No negatives to it whatsoever. It is the correct choice of movement at this price point, 1,350, to use a quality Swiss caliber made by Sellita. The SW221 has the same architecture as the 200-1, and it's been in service since 2013, so it is reliable and well proven. It is a robust movement. It's accurate, build quality is good, quality control is good. No negatives whatsoever, so I like it. I also like that this doesn't have a date window at 3 or 6. It makes a refreshing change to see a date indicator used, and the red contrasting half moon works very well. Indexes with nice solid indexing, and the Arabic numerals are easy to read, the 31 days around the circumference of the dial. So nice dial layout, good symmetry to it, good quality movement for which does the job. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So this is a mid-tier piece. The price point is €1,350. Yes, it is unquestionably excellent quality, and yes, it is unquestionably excellent value at €1,350. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, and I'm going to highly recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Perun Veles. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.